Welcome, baby. The NPC presents Smooth Finish with our hosts Rob Romano, Chris Marcano, and Brent Lane. These guys have more chemistry than your entire test kit. Ever enlightening and striving to be entertaining. So let's dive into their latest episode of the NPC's Smooth Finish.
Hey everybody, welcome to the next version here of Smooth Finish. We are excited to talk about the Tech Bulletin number 9, Portland Limestone Cement. We have it titled actually just Limestone Cement. We have Mr. Phil Greggs here with us today, and he'll share a little bit about himself and what he's doing and with his work, and also with the NPC as far as this conversation goes. And of course, always, Chris, Rob, how we doing, guys?
10 days before Memorial Day. Could not be better.
So basically, for those listening and not watching the video, Rob is a shell of a human being, as always, right before the Memorial Day holiday. But he's going to make it. He's going to hang in there. He's going to persevere.
Committed.
Much like this industry. Yeah, today it's exciting though because this is a big one. We're releasing, the NPC is released, as Brent said, Tech Bulletin number 9, entitled Limestone Cement, which is a very general title, but it is a very, very important topic. And that's why we brought in the cement whisperer himself, Phil Greggs, and he's going to share some insights on this with us and kind of go and walk us through the evolution and changes that are occurring, because change is a hard pill to swallow. And, you know, sometimes data isn't really readily available and is out there with these wholesale changes when it comes to materials that you use on a daily basis. And that's unfortunate. But we here at the NPC and we here at Smooth Finish want to make sure that we are providing you all out there within the membership, within the organization, and within the industry, the resources that you need to adapt and benefit from these changes and understand them at a high and low level. So without further ado, Phil, would you just tell the people who don't, and I don't know who doesn't know who you are, but please just give us a brief rundown of who you are and what you do.
Okay, well, great. Thank you guys for inviting me to the show.
Yeah.
I'm a little disappointed on the scheduling. I have to follow the royalty of plastering over here. So hopefully I live up to the expectations, I guess, if you will. So my name's Phil Greggs. I'm the Technical Service Director for Southern Grouts and Mortars and current Research Committee Chair for the National Plasterers Council. And I've been in the business, so I'm kind of second generation in the swimming pool industry. I've worked for SGM for the last 27 years. And you know, kind of diving into the research committee chair position, and right at the same time as there's some pretty big changes happening in cement. So that's kind of where we're at.
Yeah, and really let's dive right in there and talk about it. There are some significant changes, specifically with limestone cement. Now, before we get down into kind of the understanding what these changes actually are, you know, Brent was talking pre-show earlier. Let's start with just limestone cement and understand what exactly qualifies, or what constitutes limestone cement. How many are there? Kind of, Brent, can you kind of talk to that as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Phil and I were talking a little bit about it, and I actually was missing one because the C150, which was kind of what everybody was using before the limestone, or let's say before the the zero carbon or carbon neutral initiatives came along, that was kind of what we're using. And Phil reminded me that even C150 now has a component of limestone. Isn't that's right, Phil?
Yeah, yes, sir. Yep. As of 2004, we've added on our C150 specification, up to 5% limestone. So, but the limestone that we're talking about today, and what's coming down the pipe is, the cement industry. And as we try to create a greener cement, we continue to increase the limestone content to try to reduce the carbon footprint, really. So limestone cement is really just like ordinary Portland cement, what we've been using, a C150 cement, with the added component of a finely ground limestone to that. And you know, part of the reason that they do that is they've figured out that by adding limestone, they could obviously reduce the carbon footprint. But I think what initially happened was they talked about, or they started using some limestone, and through some research and testing, they figured out, well, when they add a little bit of limestone, they actually increase the compressive strength and reduce the porosity of cement, which sounds like a pretty good thing. So as you continue and as you continue to go up, the compressive strength started going up. When you're down at 3%, 4%, 5%, you actually increase compressive strength. But as you get up higher and higher on the chain, all of a sudden you start to come to sort of an equilibrium where you're adding it, and then there isn't no longer a benefit. So that's kind of where we have the three different types of cement that we're talking about now, and one of the things that we're testing at NPC.
So basically what we're dealing with is there is the change that is occurring is 100% driven in an effort to generally lower CO2 emissions as an industry, correct?
Correct.
And so the lever that's being thrown is by the addition and changing basically the recipe for these you know, of the mixes. And because of that, are we talking, I mean, how long, I guess, do we anticipate before this is the standard and this is just the way it's all going to be? Or, I mean, we're starting to see the changes evolve now, Phil, but in your opinion, how long before this is a wholesale change?
Oh, that's hard to really quantify. But I can tell you as a manufacturer of grouts and thin sets and that sort of thing, just a few years ago, some of our cement suppliers were coming to us, especially on the gray side, and they were talking about this potential change. And then there was a little bit, it came in little dribs and drabs, but you know, it went from they're kind of talking about it to now they're starting to do it, to, like, in many cases, it's the only cement that you can get when you're talking about getting cement on the gray side.
Sure.
And you know, it's always been pitched to us as hey, it's just kind of a small change. It's not a huge change, because as we in a minute when we talk about the differences in the cement, it's not a huge percentage change compared to the C150 cement that's happening right now. But I guess to better understand it and why they're doing it is to look more at what's happening globally with cement and in the concrete industry, really. You know, kind of a fun fact is that out of all the man-made products, concrete is used more than any other product that you could even think of, by like tenfold. And since cement is the glue that holds, you know, the concrete together, if you will, just being able to save a little bit of carbon and a little bit of improvement to the environment makes a big difference as far as the carbon, the greenhouse gases that they're really concerned about. So what's really driving it is you know, trying to make improvements for greenhouse gases, all the things that you see, electric cars, windmills, solar energy. That's the same thing that's happening in the industry, right? It's just something that's coming. There isn't any sort of regulation right now or government mandate saying you absolutely have to have this, but on many government funded projects, they are requesting or insisting that you use a carbon friendly or greener cement, almost like they did with the LEED certification and LEED points.
Right.
LEED, recycled materials, those types of things, making sure you're using things that aren't contributing and are reusing products instead of going to the landfill.
Yeah.
Phil, we didn't, if you don't mind, we talked about C150, and then there's two others. Would you mind sharing those and kind of what their contents are?
Oh yeah, sure. So so pretty much what we've been using almost my entire life is ASTM C150, and I probably should maybe stop and talk about ASTM for a second, even just so we know what we're talking about. So
yeah, please.
So basically, ASTM, it stands for the American Society of Testing and Materials, or at least it had for forever. Now they're just called ASTM International. But essentially they're the gold standard for setting the levels on many different products. In the cement industry, they're just there to provide some consistency between cement producers. So if you're in one part of the country, another part of the country, or you have a particular need for your cement for concrete or whatever you're using it for, they set a standard. And basically the way the standards are with the cements that we're talking about is there's three. There's the ASTM C150, the ASTM C595, and then the ASTM C1157. And then here's the differences. ASTM C150 historically did not have limestone. Somewhere around 2004, I'm sure there's some fact checkers out there or whatever, but right around that range, in around 2004, they added some limestone to it. And essentially when they're adding limestone, I guess I'll get back to that in a second, not get too far. So they add up to 5% of limestone in a C150 cement, and we've been using it and it's fine. And I say we, the plaster industry as a whole. The next cement, and then the next cement that is becoming more popular, and what we're seeing really kind of flourish in the plastering industry on the white side of the cement, is ASTM C595. It's also, there's a few other names or nomenclatures, I guess, if you will, for this type of cement. It's also called 1L cement. It's also called limestone cement. And that
PLC.
PLC, yes, yep. That is has a limestone content of up to 15%. So it's essentially, 10% more limestone. And then the third cement that we're looking at, and what we reference in our technical bulletin, is the ASTM C1157 cement, or 1157 GU. Okay, and that cement, you can have up to 35% limestone. So where are they going with limestone, and why are they doing it? And so to understand that better, you should understand how they make cement, right? So
Yeah.
basically they mine cement from the earth. They take it starts off actually as a big part of it is limestone and clays and other components. They crush them into a powder, and then they send them through a kiln. The kiln heats this powdery mixture up to somewhere north of 2,500 degrees Fahrenheit, and it creates clinker. The clinker is then finally ground back into a powder. They add gypsum to it to control set and some other chemicals, and then they add limestone after. This limestone addition that we're talking about now is added after the firing process. So essentially what they're able to do is they're able to produce about 10% more cement, if you will, when you're doing the C595 cement, without sending all the raw materials through the big carbon maker, if you will. The carbon maker, the carbon producer, is the kiln, and it's pretty easy to say, hey, if you're heating something to 2,500 degrees, you understand you're burning a lot of fossil fuel to get that get to that temperature. That's the real obvious part of it. The less obvious part of it is calcining process, basically a chemical process that happens at that temperature. You're driving off carbon.
You're burning carbon
also,
out.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And that's also being released into the atmosphere. So by reducing that, or being able to boost your end production by about 10% without that fossil fuel burn and without the chemical reaction, you can reduce the amount of carbon that you're putting out. And essentially what they're trying to do is trying to produce a cement that has equal values, equal performance, equal compressive strength, all the things that you would typically test a cement for as a C150 cement. They're supposed to be, a pretty even, tit for tat kind of. If you use the C150, you can put this in there and you can use it equally. So when we kind of took on this project, I guess, Well, maybe I should get to the third cement first, huh?
We'll get there.
I get right past that one.
Let's this is exactly why it's important to go to npconline.org and check this technical bulletin out for yourself, because there's so much very, very detailed information in this. But by all means, Phil, please proceed. This is riveting.
Yes. So, okay. So that then the third cement that is out there is ASTM C1157. It's a general use cement. And the standard for that, the specification for that allows up to 35% limestone. And so what's different about that's standard compared to the other two, the C150 and the C595 cement, they have chemical parameters. There's chemical parameters and there's physical properties that they have to meet. With the 1157, they're primarily focused on the physical properties. So essentially, if you want to, this is quite an exaggeration. You could grind up just about anything if you could make it a cementitious product out of it, and you can achieve the compressive strength and the properties that are required by ASTM. It could qualify as 1157, whereas the 595 and the C150, there's certain chemical parameters that you have to stay within in order to qualify. So all three of these cements, we have through our research committee and the National Plasters Council, we have identified as they are currently being used in the swimming pool industry, in pool plasters throughout the United States.
Okay, so those are our usual suspects.
Yes, sir. Yep.
I just want to, from a production standpoint, the cement guys are going this way. I mean, it's here. Let's just say that it's definitely here.
Yeah.
We're seeing it used, and the other stuff's going away slowly, because as a production facility, these are huge operations that manufacture cement. So they have a line and they have storage. You can't really make two things in these scenarios, right? So one, they're able to put in unprocessed materials, like adding water to chemicals.
Yeah.
Right. They're able to, something they don't have to touch, add to the cement, sell for the same because it's meets the standard. And, I guess that's the scenario. So why wouldn't they? They're able to do it. That's what we're dealing with. So these manufacturers are going to move more and more to that. And as the standards change and things are allowed, I'm sure that unprocessed material is going to continue to make its way, in. And again, it's not to scare you. It's just so you're aware. And we'll talk more about the end, like what the consumer should be looking for and what you should be watching out for yourself. But just wanted to make that point.
Yeah, and that's a great point. This isn't something obviously that is going to happen overnight, as Phil pointed out, but it's interesting to hear the scope and understand what's fueling this change. And when you realize, Phil, from the data you just shared, how large of a volume item globally that cement is, and how even reducing, a percentage or two of the carbon footprint of such a large volume industry, what it means, but it ultimately with an industry of that scale, the pool and spa side of things is such an afterthought, right? Like we are a drop in the ocean,
Yeah,
drop in the deep end of the pool.
Well, that is the truth. You would think as many trailer loads of cement that come into our yard alone, how big of an impact we have on it. We are literally just a drop in the pool, so to speak.
Yeah,
of the cement industry. And what makes us unique, and this is one of the reasons why when I was chairman, I asked Phil to be the chairman of the research committees. We needed someone that had good understanding of cement to help and how it's applied in our environment, in a water environment. What is this going to do? What's the impact going to be specifically for us? Because we're very unique in the cement industry with the fact that we add water, where we submerge our finishes almost immediately in water. So I might be getting ahead of myself here, but that's where the motivation comes from.
Yeah, for sure. We are definitely unique. And that's one of the things that makes it interesting and a little bit challenging about, why can't we just go out there? There's so much technology in cement. Why can't we just go borrow their technology, for example? And you'll see as we kind of talk through this, and as you guys probably know with our research, it's just not that simple cut and paste, and we are a very unique industry.
Oh yeah, it is niche to say the least and very specialized. So in regards to these different types of cements that we've identified, Phil, what do you want to get into kind of some of the characteristics and workability regarding these?
As far as workability and the general characteristics of the cement, that's some of the questions that we have and some of the things that we're testing right now. So, the ACI came and they did a presentation at the Plasterers Council, 2 years ago. And they were talking about the incoming potential incoming cement and limestone cement, and if you look around and you research a little bit, they're saying that the C150 and 595 are interchangeable, and they're saying this based on concrete production, and like I say, we're different than that. When you talk about testing cement and some of these ASTM standards. Typically, we test cements, for different things. We have, set time and some of the other stuff I guess we'll talk about. But typically, they're talking about testing cement at 7 days, 14 days, and 28 days. It's pretty well understood it takes 28 days for a pool plaster to cure. Well, that's because cement hydrates for the most part for the first 28 days. And so if you pass the standard at 28 days, well, whoop-de-doo, that's great for you. But as a pool plaster, we're plastering the pools, we're exposing those pools many times the same day or the very next day, and then we're adding water to it. So one of the things, like I say, that makes us unique is we're looking at those things closer on early compressive strength, for example, high early compressive strength. How do they compare? How do they, is there advantage of one over the other? And I don't want to get too far ahead of where we're going, because we're going to, I guess, talk about what we're testing and how we're going about it. But those are the things that we're really looking at.
Right.
No,
Well, no,
Phil, I think, yeah. Go ahead, Chris. I was going to say,
I was
I
going to
think
say what a
that's
perfect
good
segue to get into what what are we looking for? It sounds like to me, just to summarize, that when it comes to our part of the business, right, swimming pools and the like, we are going to be the exception to the norm of most concrete, right? So, or most cements, and because of the unique aspects that we have going into the ground and becoming vessels of water, that hold water. So having said that, I think this is a great opportunity to dig in and kind of talk to what we're doing at the NPC, what we're doing with these committees and the experts that we're collaborating and partnering with, like Phil and his organization, to get the information and data that we need. So even if this is a square peg round hole, when we're talking about the entire global industry and then our niche part of it, that we're going to provide insight and good information to help navigate these upcoming changes.
Yeah, that's to add to that. I think that's kind of where we're at. So that we as a council, right, the research committee, which is, it's a full room. There's a lot of people represented. There's a lot of cement manufacturers in that room. There's a lot of plaster manufacturers in the room, and then just the guys out in the field. So as a group, we talked about, what do we need to know, right? So we first came up with test parameters, and Phil, I'll let you go through them, but the idea is to take it to the lab first so we can see what the lab tells us the variances are between these cements. So then if we know what those say with specific testing, like, now what's that going to tell us to do out in the field? So I guess maybe share, like, what are the tests we're doing that we're putting in the lab, and and why, and then I think we can get into, we have some assumptions, but then what will we do out in the field?
Yeah.
So
Sure. Okay. So, just to kind of to reiterate what you said is, I think the research committee, I don't know this to be a fact, but I think it's the largest committee at NPC right now. There's a lot of attention to this, and there's a lot of interest in it. And
Yep.
the great part about this is, and I think what really helps us is, like you mentioned, we have cement manufacturers. We have not only just cement manufacturers and salesmen, we've got their technical people on our research board. We've got pigment suppliers, pigment manufacturers, their technical people on our board. We've got guys that have been plastering for decades. They're on our board. So I don't think there's any place in the world that I know of where there's this much expertise in pool plaster finishes and cement that are coming together to kind of look at this, figure out what potential problems or issues there may be, if any. It may be pretty
Well,
seamless.
Yeah, and that's what we're trying, that's what we're looking for. As the end user on my end, these are the questions that I have. Is it gonna make my guys who are applying the material, is it gonna make their life more difficult?
Yep.
How are the dyes gonna be handled? How is it gonna handle the dyes? What's the long-term scenario? We already are challenged with water chemistry and how it reacts with new finishes. And is this going to react differently going then in the future as they implement more limestone into the mix? I mean, right now we're using the PL cement, and it's okay. We're not seeing anything out of the ordinary, but we want to see, was it 5 years from now? They're looking to increase the amount of limestone that's in the cement. What's going to happen when we hit that milestone?
Yeah. So it's for sure coming, because they have announced, they, meaning the cement industry, has announced, and there's a paper out on the pathway or the roadway to carbon neutrality. So by 2050, they are trying to become carbon neutral, or basically not produce carbon or greatly reduce their carbon footprint, if you will. So is it coming? Yes, it is. And this is just the first steps. So, our approach was really sort of more of an academic approach first, because when you go and you talk to people, like I just heard from Rob, he's like, hey, we're using it and we're not having an issue. It seems to be okay. And then you go a couple counties over or a state over, and you're like, holy cow, this is terrible. This stuff's falling off the walls. And then you talk to somebody else who's using a cement that has a much higher limestone in a much different condition, and they have something else to say to it. And it's really hard to quantify how a cement performs based on sort of this verbal input without knowing the rest of the story. It's pretty cold where Robbie's at. You go out west, it might be blazing hot. So you're testing the cement in different conditions. So to really kind of break it down and to get as specific as possible, we hired an outside independent test lab. As a committee, we came together and determined the best tests that apply to our industry. Most of the tests that we are doing are ASTM standard tests. So there's a pretty good prescription, if you will, on how the tests are performed and how to keep help me out here. I lost my words.
Control the variables.
Control the variables and keep the numbers coming back to us at something that makes sense. Because what we also found out is that just because, so let's say one manufacturer makes a C150 cement, that's the traditional cement that we're using, and now they decide, hey, we also want to get on board with this greener cement. So in our other factory, we're going to make a C595 cement or a C1157 cement. Because of their raw material source, almost all these cement manufacturers are constructed really close to where their raw materials are to cut down on expenses. So their raw material source can actually affect the test data that you get. That's why sometimes if you buy, you say, hey, I get one batch of cement and it acts a little, it sets up a little faster or a little slower, or it reacts a little bit differently. That's just because of where the source is. So one of our challenges was being able to get cements from the same parent clinker, if you will. So the minerals, everything that we're testing on our different cements that we're testing, they came from 3 different sources, and the 3 different sources that they came from, the parent cement, if you will, the C150 cement that we are using as our baseline test, and the limestone cement are all coming from the same parent, clinker, I guess.
Yeah,
So
that's
trying-
important to, to just make that point again, that, that had to happen, right? We had to make sure that, the cement was made from the same hole in the ground, let's say, or from the same material, because that's the best way to, compare the two. So,
Right, because if you don't do that, then then all your testing is somewhat invalid, because you could have variances that are coming from other sources. In order to get the testing that is accurate, you got to minimize the variables as much as possible.
Yeah,
So-
and that's one thing I noticed when I was kind of late to the party, but I saw the effort and the resources that have been put together for this effort from the NPC and the other partners on this initiative. But it's not just a snapshot of the current potential change. This is a deep dive into the long-term effects that potentially this evolution of materials could provide, could cause within the industry. So it is impressive. And as this the machines kind of put in place with the hard work of people like Phil and a whole team of folks, but the NPC is making sure that this machine's in place to do and gather as much real data specifically to this industry that we'll share and we will continue to share moving forward. So this tech bulletin and this conversation is really just the tip of the iceberg as we continue to evolve this testing, this research, and understanding this change that's occurring.
So, Phil, where are we in the testing process?
So we've collected all of our samples. We have about 2 weeks ago delivered all of our samples to our test lab, and they have commenced testing. So some of these tests are going to take some time to complete. Getting into the lab schedule is another little bit of a challenge that we're working on. So they have been pretty accommodating and helpful and understanding. And when we started talking to them about doing this test, they were pretty open. But you can imagine, with all this change in cement, there's a lot of people running around trying to test cement and look at some different things. And so yeah, we're in a little bit of a crowded room when it comes to looking at some of these cements, mostly on the gray side, very little bit on the white side.
Well, see, now on the gray side, and this is coming from my builder's background, I think it would be important for builders to understand what this is doing to their gunite or their shotcrete finishes or shotcrete shells.
Rob, I am astonished at how many people that I've spoken to that have no idea
I agree
that they changed the cement that they're using. I don't know that you absolutely have to tell them. Our cement suppliers that we deal with, if they ever make a change or it comes from a different supplier, us as a manufacturer, we demand that they notify us. It just doesn't work that way. It's not.
Well, these you have shotcrete crews that are out there that, like you said, they may just not be aware because their supplier isn't necessarily telling them. But I've heard through conversations how the gray cements have been affected, mostly out west or more west of where I am. But it's certainly, if you're a builder and you're listening to this here, you might want to look into that on your end as well. I don't know that you're gonna see major changes, but you want to be aware, because, you know, as we all grew up, G.I. Joe, knowing is half the battle, right? So just knowing having an idea of what your place is putting in place, and possibly how that could even interact eventually down the road with these finishes, with the pool finishes, is real important.
Yeah, it's a
something to
big
think about.
point. Yeah, it's a big point, Rob, and it's one of the recommendations I know we're making with others in this conversation is, you know, if you're just a user, general user, and you're getting, you know, concrete trucks rolling up or whatever, and their supply, which generally themselves, a lot of times those guys have their own supply, but you know, they have millings, right? And you have to ask for it. They're not going to just give it to you. You know, Phil and his company, they're manufacturers, so they demand it, right? You got to tell me, so I know what I have to do to make this stuff the same. But the everyday use, you know, you have to ask for it, and we definitely recommend in these times that occasionally you're asking to see what is different and what those components are.
Are the different runs, Brent and Phil, are the different runs typically certified?
What do you mean by that? So they have mill certification, absolutely. So when they're producing cement, yeah.
Yeah, and that's what I'm suggesting, looking for mill certification. It's going to tell you all the contents of that cement. So, you know, maybe this delivery it's 10, and maybe, you know, 5 months from now it's 15, 20. You might want to know that, right? So
absolutely.
Yeah.
Knowledge is king.
For sure. And you know, as far as the limestone content, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, on the spec, it's not required for them to record what it is, just to simply record that it falls under the C, you know, 595 spec.
You know, what can we get from the mill certificate? Like what can it tell somebody if they're asking for it?
It's going to tell you the chemical composition of the cement you're receiving. If you request, it will have the limestone content on there. Really, it's just a matter of, you know, you can request that information, but you almost need to be a scientist to read it. Quite frankly, you're better off working with the cement supplier, your cement supplier, directly, having the conversation with them, and you know, getting that information that you need. The limestone content is certainly one of the things that you're going to want to know where it is. And I think the testing that we're performing now is going to help smooth a lot of that out. One of the things that often happens is when there's change, we all resist change. I do. You know, you've just moved where the dishes are in my kitchen, and it's a problem. You know, my wife, every once in a while, she reorganizes everything. I'm like, hey, where's the spatulas for the barbecue? I know, what the hell? So we resist change like that, and this is a change that's coming whether we like it or not. So, you know, form a relationship with your cement supplier. If you're buying cement directly, work with them. They will help you. They, you know, they're in this too. They didn't just flip the switch on one day and say, hey, let's make a new greener cement. Let's, you know, invest all this money in another mill. Let's do all this stuff just for the heck of it. So we're kind of all in this together, if you will.
Absolutely.
And I don't want it to sound like, hey, I'm promoting like limestone cement and it's the new greatest thing. The jury's still out. There is a lot of stuff that indicates that it's pretty stable, and it's probably not going to be too much, but we want to get ahead of this now, because where the future is you're going to see, you know, the 35% plus most likely moving forward. I don't know how soon that's going to happen, but all indications are that, you know, they've gotten to 15 and they're going to go north with that.
Yeah. So I was just wanted to say, so we at the lab we're testing like the things that matter, you know, water cement ratio, drying shrinkage, absorption, compressive strength, other things of that nature that matter.
Yes.
What from that, I know that we've already talked about within committee like some tests that once we have this information that will employ, our members to try in different parts of the world with different cements. Really, I mean, everybody has different suppliers, but just to see what the results were so we can collectively get that data back and kind of, again, speak in Congress back to the industry of what we're seeing and what changes will be. I think, I can just share on those so we can move to some of the concerns or things that we think we're going to see. But, we thought water wand testing would be important. Noticing plaster dust or recording plaster dust changes, pigment intensities, the muting of pigment and that type of thing, and color. How the plaster itself, the rheology, how it works, how water works with it when we need to redo that, and really just the strength of the paste and the cement or the plaster itself as we're finishing out and as we're exposing and those types of things. So those, I know, are the things with this data we're going to really consolidate, come back together and say, all right, here's what we need to test in that field work. Like, this is what we want you, how you want to do it this way, report back what you find, those types of things, so we can really get, a concerted answer back to our members for sure, and to the industry. Again, this is in relation to what we do every day. This whole topic is bigger to the industry, as Rob was saying, with cements, shotcrete, gunite, any cement you're using, decking, all that stuff.
Yeah.
But then I think we should talk about what we suspect. We have some thoughts. Everybody has some thoughts of what we will have to adapt to. Phil, can you speak on those? The things you think we might need to adapt to without knowing yet?
Well, I can tell you what we do know about the physical characteristics of the cement, limestone cement. So typically, limestone cement in the grinding process typically has a finer blade size. So it is ground. The particle size is typically smaller. So when that happens, the water demand goes up slightly. It takes a little bit more water to wet out the cement. And just sort of the rubber stamp answer to that is, and what is pretty well recognized, is lower water to cement ratios create a stronger cement. When you add water to cement, it starts a hydration process. It starts this chemical process within the cement, and you have to add the right amount of water to it. That right amount of water is used up during the hydration process. If you add too much water, what happens is some of the water molecules are just kind of hanging out, loitering, if you will, right? They're just chilling. They're not doing anything. They're not reacting with the rest of the cement. And then eventually when they leave the plaster, they leave a void. So we're a little concerned about the higher water demand in the sense of what it might do to the strength. We're concerned now if you talk about adding pigments to that, anytime you add excessive water or more water to your a pigmented cement, typically it lightens the color. So a little less water or the proper water ratio, and your colors are going to stay a lot more true to what they're originally intended. So those are things that we know about the cement. And now what we're going to do, and we have tests set up to actually quantify what we believe is going to happen or what may happen and what actually happens, essentially by adding the appropriate amount of water and then pigments, and then do a color spectrometer, color test to see how much that may affect. Also, of course, through the lab, all of the things on compressive strength and shrinkage and porosity, tensile strength, all of those things that are important to the cement aspect of pool plaster. Compressive strength usually gives us a pretty good indication. If you got a good strong cement and high compressive strength, you're usually pretty chemically resistant, and you can have a pretty durable finish. Lower compressive strengths, not so much. tensile strength. Tensile strength can be a good indicator of how frost resistant a pool finish could be. And like Robbie, that's right in your wheelhouse. That's kind of, some of the stuff that you're going to want to know or hear about. How much, the rate of cure, how long does it take for the material to set up, for example? Last thing you want to do is you start plastering a pool and the thing flashes off on you and never get a chance to really completely finish and trowel it out nicely.
We've actually, we've experienced, that's our experience. I'm not saying nationwide, is that it's actually a little slower right now. So it's taking them a little longer to finish the pools.
Yeah.
Not by a lot, maybe 20 minutes, a half an hour, but it's not what they're used to getting out there just a little earlier.
Yeah. And so what makes some of this information challenging at times is also a lot of guys modify the product on the job site. So they're just not mixing aggregate and cement together. It might be adding pozzolans or polymers or accelerators, plasticizers. There's many things that you can add to modify the cement performance. As a pre-blender, we certainly do. We add a lot of stuff. We modify the cement that we're getting now to help the performance and the longevity and the workability and all of that. What we're doing is we're kind of getting right back down to the grassroots, I should say, of the cement. So we can absolutely compare these pretty much raw cement to raw cement, and then a plaster mix to plaster mix on six different samples. And we're hoping that with this information, that is going to help us take our next step. And our next step is taking it to the streets or taking it to the field, where the NPC is going to do the same sort of testing where we can try to determine, things like how much plaster dust are we getting, any shrinkage cracks. A lot of this is happening already. It's almost like we can't test it fast enough because it went from, hey, yeah, we're thinking about doing it. Well, we're going to do it. And one of the cement manufacturers, they said they were going to do it, and then they held off for a little while, and then come January of this year, that's all they produce.
And they're marketing it with shirts.
Yeah. I mean,
right?
Yeah,
you gotta
trust
sell
me.
So, and that's a really good point. So understand that we're trying to find the answers as these changes are coming. Ideally, we were hoping to get ahead of the game, but we're playing a little bit of catch up because it's coming out first, and now we have to react to where we would want to have been proactive. We can't because it just wasn't available until now. So we're learning this. Everything we're learning alongside of the applicators and the service companies and the builders. So just bear with us. We're going to get you as many answers as we can possibly get out of this research. But we're doing it in real time. So there's a lot of opinions that are being thrown out there. We're getting you the real science. We're doing the research. We're getting you the science.
I think that's exactly something to reinforce and to highlight here is this isn't a one-sided opinion. This is real third party. This isn't anecdotal. This is real data in various phases. And this is a large scale commitment to discovery of all of the theoretical and real life changes that are occurring right now. And there's no spin on this whatsoever other than we want to know exactly what it is that's out there in the market. And we want to equip and educate, the industry and the NPC members with this information so they can, make any changes that could be necessary. Maybe this is a nothing burger. We're discovering all of that right now, but it's going to be real information and it's going to be thoroughly vetted out with third-party testing. That's the key. This isn't, we're a manufacturer of this. We checked it out and it's fine. Trust us. That's great. But we have to see how this applies in many different facades.
Yeah.
And I think, go ahead, Phil.
Yep. So one of the things that we're doing is we're even going through the painstaking process of testing what the limestone content of the cement is that we are receiving. So even though, it says, hey, it falls underneath this certain spec, just to further quantify that, we are taking that material and we're actually testing it so we can say, hey, this one has 9% or 11% or 13 or 15 or whatever that percentage is. So hopefully that there's our hope is that there'll be a correlation to performance based on that limestone content. Every cement manufacturer that's doing this, whether it's gray, white, within the United States, outside of the United States, wherever they're coming from, every single one of them says, almost like we do with chemicals when we're going to apply them or we're going to clean a spot. Anybody who buys cleaners, they say, before you do the whole thing, test it on a small inconspicuous spot.
Right.
They all say test, test, test. So we're testing, and fortunately, we have their help, and it's really good. It's a pretty good thing. And the other thing, I think it's sort of I don't know, I'll say this as a if you're not a member of the NPC, this is a great time to join, because this testing is not inexpensive. It is, we needed to come together to have this done. As a pool plasterer, Rob, I mean, you have the kind of funds to just go out there and test the cement at this level to get this? No, it's
No.
unachievable, right?
Exactly.
Luckily, we have this organization that is here that's helping the industry, the plastering industry for sure, better understand what's going to happen and how we can go about kind of protecting ourselves, because all of a sudden you get 10 or 15 pools that go south on you. That could put some people out of business. So we're trying to avoid that, and just we're really looking for things that are that egregious that we wouldn't be able to handle them. All indications are right now that it's a pretty simple change. There are going to be some things that we need to adjust to, but basically, we're looking for the big stuff.
Yeah, I think that's to kind of maybe wrap this thing up. This paper definitely, this conversation, first of all, we've looked behind the veil. We've kind of shared what we're doing. The paper definitely takes you down the path of what limestone cement is, why it's here, what exactly it is, and what you might want to look for, what we're looking for too, and seeing. And then, of course, the last part of it kind of asks the consumer, you can get your hands on this paper, and we'll again show you what you should probably be watching for, and potentially even reporting. We talked about mill certificates already, looking at the limestone, fineness, alkaline content, magnesium, looking at those things. Maybe Greek to most of us, but as Phil had shared with you, if you talk with your cement supplier, I think they can talk you through those and give you good information. Phil just said it a minute ago. We ask every test. Just make sure you're testing. If it's funny because I saw on one of the platforms the other day, like, hey, up here in New Jersey or something, they're pushing this Portland limestone cement. Anybody use it? Was it, so it's out there. The distributors are getting it, like, whether they ordered it or not, that's the truckload that showed up. So it's out there. So if you're getting it, you might want to.
I got this color bag. Now I have this color bag. What's going on? What's going to happen to my product? How many callbacks am I going to get? So these, I could say, as on my end, we're full swing into our season. So far, so good. This isn't to raise alarms, it's to raise awareness. It's pretty much to say, hey guys, this is what's out here. This is what, we're trying to find out exactly what to expect. You're probably experiencing all the expectations right now. Be cognizant of things that could, watch your finishes, listen to your builders, listen to your customers. What's the feedback that's coming back to you? And if you can, share that with us, because this is what a community like ours is all about. It's sharing ideas and sharing information and sharing the experiences, and only to make future experiences that much better. So just be aware, and don't be afraid to tell your builder, hey, this is what's happening. And we got this really good group that's trying to figure things out, and they're doing it. So just, if you're seeing right now, if anything, I might see like an increase in ghosting, or a lot more. It's plaster dust that's coming off. That's it. But as long as you're doing the proper startup, the NPC startup, and brushing your pools, and you're okay. Just might be a little bit more. I might have to backwash 1 or 2 more times extra. That's it. I think, because I haven't done a full season of this yet either. So just share your ideas. Know how to get a hold of us. Email, contact Kent Westfall, who's our technical director, and ask him stuff, right? So you see the fly coming in.
Robbie just got attacked by something.
And a kamikaze come after me.
Yeah, he's gonna have a cast on his neck next. Oh.
Yeah, no, I'm out of the boot. That's a whole other podcast, but I'm out of the boot.
Yeah. So I guess right, Robbie. So see something, say something, right?
Yep.
But definitely, Phil said it best. This organization is doing things for the industry, for its members right now that that it needs to be doing, and it's important. And the more you participate, the more you're going to gain knowledge wise, and be better off yourself as these things change. And if you see and experience changes, bring it back to us. We're here for you. And I would say, get your hands on this paper. Chris had shared the address earlier, npconline.org, which is our professional side. The consumer side, I don't think it's there, because this is definitely meant more for our industry at this point. It's a technical bulletin. It's not a white paper. And again, we're not out to scare the public. We're out to just share that there's changes, and you should be aware, and you should be involved. And Phil, we can't thank you enough. You've given us a lot of information today. This was robust. It was important, and this is important. And I just want to thank you as one, and this is an adage, Phil is kind of my mentor in teaching me anything I really know about cement and plasters and all that when I worked with him. And it's funny hearing him talk, because I can almost hear myself, but really I'm hearing him coming out of me. So Phil, thank you so much. And guys, as always, really appreciate it. I think we've come to a smooth finish.
That's right.
And I think industry, get on board. Let's go.
Yep. And remember to like and share this podcast on all the major outlets.
Awesome.
Thanks, guys. Happy Memorial Day. 10 days to Memorial Day.
Oh yeah, can't wait. Looking forward
Robbie's
to it.
counting it down.